let's talk Big Ten cornerbacks. So, for the last of the Big Ten tier video series that we're doing here on the channel, we are going to tier the top 30 cornerbacks in the Big Ten. The last positional group, we went through them all. We did full teams, we did quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, safeties, and now cornerbacks. It's an interesting position for the Gophers, replacing a lot with Justin Wally and Ethan Robinson off to the NFL. So let's see where they stack up and where the rest of the Big Ten is at that position heading into 2025. So, like I said, we're going to do the top 30 here. We have 5 different tiers: elite, great number ones, good transfers, breakout candidates, wildcards, and question marks. That is 6 tiers. I do not really know how to count, but let's get right into it. So, at the top, the elite tier, these are guys that have all American potential, that could be the best player on their defense at any given time. And opposing teams are going to game plan around these guys. And at the top is D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. One of the best stories from college football last year when Indiana broke out with Kurt Cignetti. Pons is back. Might not have the highest pro potential as anyone on this list, because he is 5'9", but we are not doing an NFL draft big board. I think he fits better into the college game, and after a great 2024, I think he's the best cornerback in the conference heading into this season. At number 2, A.J. Harris from Penn State, probably the top pro prospect in the conference, probably has a higher ceiling than Pons, but I'm backing the production that Pons had last year. Give him a slight edge over A.J. Harris, but I could totally see an argument going in the other direction. Next on the list here, we have Davison Igbinosun from Ohio State. Classic Ohio State cornerback. Wouldn't shock me if, April rolls around, we're talking to this guy. Back into the first, early second round pick. Really talented guy, much like A.J. Harris. Probably has a higher ceiling than Pons, but doesn't have the same production as the two guys in front of him, so he lands at 3. And then rounding out this top tier, we got Xavier Scott, another undersized corner. I'll get into it a little more, but one of my main takeaways is that Illinois' secondary might be the strength of their team. They're going to be tough to pass on this year, and Xavier Scott is a big reason why. At number 5, so this next tier we have is the great number ones tier. So I think all 4 of these teams with these guys are very happy with them as their number one corners, and they're not going to be like, and they think that these guys are elite, but they're a tier below the top in my opinion. And at the top of that list is Jair Hill from Michigan, another guy who can sneak into NFL draft talks very quickly with a good year. And he's knocking on the door of the top tier. Next, we have Ricardo Hallman from Wisconsin. Really interesting player because this time last year, he had a lot more hype going into the year. He had a huge 2023, took a bit of a step back in 2024. I think a bit of a post-hype sleeper here. And I think he could quietly have a big 2025. One of the better players on Wisconsin's defense. Next, we have Sierra Wright from Nebraska. Nebraska fans sure know how to make people know that their players are good. If I didn't have this guy very high, I think I'd hear it in the comments from the Cornhusker fans. But nevertheless, a solid cornerback that I think Go Big Red over there in Lincoln is happy with as their number one option. And rounding out this tier is Deshaun Lee from Iowa. Iowa, really interesting defense this year. I'm really high on them. I think they're a college football playoff sleeper. But Deshaun Lee is a really good number one cornerback. So, on to the next tier. We have good transfers. Like any position in the Big Ten, there are plenty of good transfers at the cornerback position. Top of that list, we have a guy who was in the Big Ten last year, Theron Johnson, who began his career at Northwestern, who I think could have a huge year for Oregon. And he might be one guy I'm low on. But he fits in that transfer tier, and he is really solid heading in 25. And then we have DJ Harvey at USC. Similar situation that he's going to be their number one guy. And if USC has a good defense, it's going to be because DJ Harvey met expectations. Next, we have Takario Davis, who took a year to follow Jed Fish, began his career at Arizona, played one more year at Arizona last year, and now he's off to Seattle in the Big Ten. Solid pickup for the Huskies. Another team that I think is underrated in this conference, and Takario Davis, a sneaky pickup. Lastly, Joshua Eaton, a guy who did not come from as big as programs as the guys ahead of him on this list. He's a Texas State transfer, but a really experienced guy who I think could have a solid 2025. And then to the next tier we go. These are breakout candidates. And the top guy at number 13 for me on this tier might be my favorite name in the Big Ten. I was not familiar with him before doing this, but Ephesians Prysock sounds like an East-West Bowl character. And he's a heck of a cornerback. And Washington, as you see, is the first team that I've listed with two cornerbacks on the list. I think they have the best duo in the conference. They might not have the ceiling as a D'Angelo Pons or an A.J. Harris or a Davison Igbinosun, but I think Takario Davis and Ephesians Prysock together make the best cornerback duo in the Big Ten in 2025. Next name here on the list, we have Nazir Forquan, a guy that some college football fans might recognize the name because he sued the NCAA for an extra year of eligibility. He was Diego Pavia was the JUCO guy, and I think Nazir Forquan played a year of D2 football and claimed for it to be a similar situation as the Diego Pavia deal, and he wanted extra eligibility, and he got it. And he's really experienced in his mid-20s now, but really talented cornerback that I think should provide some solid depth in the back end for the Badgers. Next on the list, we got Elliott Washington II from Penn State. Makes another really good duo, like I mentioned, with A.J. Harris. And you might have the higher ceiling with Harris if you're ranking all these duos between Hallman and Forquan and then Prysock and Davis. I got an argument for that, but give me Prysock and Davis. Elliott Washington II, though, not too far behind. And as for another one here, we have Caleb Patterson from Illinois, another duo, solid cornerback, making a good room there in Champaign. Next on the list, Jalil Florence from Oregon returns to make a solid duo next to Theron Johnson. And then Ohio State with Jermaine Matthews Jr., excuse me. Solid secondary for the Buckeyes once again. And the first Rutgers player on the list, we got Bo Masco, who's a underrated cornerback. And doing some research on him, I think he could have a big year. I think I could be a little low on him. But he's one spot ahead of the first Gophers player on the list, Zaquan Bryant. So, a few of the EA College Football 26 ratings came out, and Zaquan Bryant was an 80 overall. That made him in a tie, I guess, for the 12th highest rated player on the Gophers roster. I was really high on Zaquan Bryant coming out of high school. I think he was pretty underrated. And he has a chance this year to really break out. A lot of Gophers fans are familiar because started a few games last year. He was their number 3 guy behind Ethan Robinson and Justin Wally on the outside. and he filled in for Wally when he was banged up a little bit. But now the Gophers need him to take that step to be a great cornerback, to be a borderline NFL level guy, to fill that Justin Wally um, role. And I think he can. I think he has the skills to. And I could honestly be a little low on him here. But by the end of the year, he's one of these guys in this tier. I called this the breakout candidates tier. If he ends into the 9 to 12 range, that would not surprise me at all. I think he is one of the biggest X factors on the Gophers team. If they have an elite defense, it's going to be because he took that next step. Because I'll get to the other Gophers corner I have on this list, but there's not much depth behind him, and they need a couple guys to outperform expectations. And I think Brian is capable of doing that, but he obviously needs to show it. So next tier we have Wildcards here. At number 21, at the top of that tier is DeCarlos Nicholson, really interesting player at USC who's bounced around a little bit. And this tier, I guess, is guys that are wild cards. I think they could be really good cornerbacks, or they could almost be like unplayable. Not to talk down on these guys, but cornerback's a high variance position, and there's a lot of ups and downs. And I think these guys are right in the middle of it. And next, we have Torrey Cox Jr. making Illinois the first team with 3 corners on the list. Big reason why I think they have one of the better secondaries in the Big Ten. And we got Fred Davis II from Northwestern, Cam Miller from Rutgers, and Tony Grimes from Purdue, rounding out that list, as almost Purdue's entire team is filled up with transfers. Every time I look at their depth chart, I am astounded by how many transfers they had. They had so many talented players leave the program after Ryan Walters was relieved of his duties, but they got plenty to come in following Ryan Odom. I don't think they'll be very good this year, but at least they're trying. And then this last tier, we have the question marks. These are guys that will have a big role on their respective teams, but I have question marks about how productive they'll be. Top of that list is Josh Fussell, who'll be the number 2 guy at Northwestern. We have Jamari Glasgow from Maryland. I think on paper, Maryland has the second worst roster in the Big Ten. The more research I do, they just don't really have many strengths anywhere. And corner is a position that has a lot of question marks. I believe their top 2 starters are going to be transfers. Next on the list, we have Chance Rucker from Michigan State. They're going to be their number 2 guy. I think he can be good, but I still have a couple questions there after a few seasons in East Lansing for him. Then UCLA's top guy, Andre Jordan Jr. I don't know if he's number 1 Big Ten cornerback material, but Bruins don't really have an option. And then last on the list, Jalen Bowden, Minnesota's number 2 cornerback, transferred from NC Central. For the 3rd straight year, the Gophers are going to have an FCS transfer cornerback. It was Trayvon Jones from Elon in 2023. It was Ethan Robinson from Bucknell last year. And now it's Bowden from NC Central. If I had to rank them, I think Bowden's probably the lowest. And that's not for skill reasons. He is just tiny. I think he needs to put on a lot of weight this offseason. I've not been in the weight room with him. Maybe he has been. But he looks small on an FCS field. He's a really skilled cornerback, but the Big Ten's a different beast than the MEAC in Durham, North Carolina. So he's got the potential here to be a good number 2. I just don't know if he has number 1 in him. And I don't know if the Gophers even need him to do that. They have a lot of good young cornerbacks that could take a step up. A Mike Gerald, a Naeem Parrish, a Sam Maydew, a who's the guy I'm forgetting? I'm blanking on one of their corners' names, but John Nestor from Iowa and Jayonte McMillan will probably work in the slot. We're more than capable there, but I think if you want to attack this Gophers defense, it's going to be through the air on the outside. and they have such good safeties, which makes this an interesting conversation. And I think which makes that could have impacted their strategy this offseason in team building because they're like, we have safeties who can ball hawk and make up for deficiencies at cornerback. So they don't need shutdown corners necessarily, but it's definitely, I think, the weakest position on the roster. So that's where we're sitting now. Top 30 cornerbacks in the Big Ten. That is the final position in this series. I might do a coach ranking. We'll see. But as for positions, that wraps it up for some preseason talk. Now we're going to get into some opponent breakdowns. The Gophers have a football game next month. We're into July now, and you can smell the season. I appreciate you guys for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. It helps us get found. Keep an eye out for any other Minnesota content on the channel. Look out for more writing content. Gophers on SI, Timberwolves on SI, Vikings and Twins. And as always, see you guys next time.